Okay. Father, is Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson's refusal to define the word woman on the grounds that she is, quote, not a biologist, any different from Catholics refusing to define John the 23rd, all the way up through Francis, as, quote, heretics on the grounds that they are not canon lawyers, cardinals, or some other church authority?
Okay, let me see if I follow. So we have a situation. Ketanji Brown has been nominated by President Biden for the Supreme Court, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was asked whether or not what a woman is, to define woman. And she said she couldn't define woman because she wasn't a biologist.
Right.
Okay. And we're comparing that to traditional Catholics who cannot come to the conclusion, the firm conclusion, I guess, that Francis and so on are not true popes because they're not canon lawyers. And they're looking for an equivalence there?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it right then. Well, there is a difference, yes. There is a difference because the idea of being able to define what a woman is not the same as the knowledge of canon law. I mean, the idea of coming to the conclusion that Francis is not the Pope is a logical and theological process, right?
Right.
And so it's more than just a matter of canon law. Canon law itself will not answer that question. Theology won't answer that question entirely either. Catholic tradition can certainly answer that question or help answer that question. But you see, even if one was able to make an airtight logical case or theological case based on Catholic tradition and canon law and so on, still the statement that a pope, Francis is not a pope, is not a matter of biology, obviously, right? It's a matter of whether he has an office, ever received it, or has it, or lost it, right? And that's a rather complex matter. It's much more complex to answer the question, to address the question of whether Francis is a pope, than it is to answer the question whether Hillary Clinton is a woman. Well, maybe it's not so different. But anyway, that you have to not only know a lot, but you have to be able to reason the process through. And then when you're done, you have to realize you can't really claim the authority to answer the question for everybody. But the question of whether Ketanji Brown can define what a woman is that's more than a matter of biology. That's just a matter of, what is natural. I mean, she can't even define, she couldn't even tell you if she's a woman at this point. You ask her, well, you can't define woman. Can you say that you are a woman? And she might say, well, yes, I'm a woman. I say, well, how do you know that? What you'd have to define woman and say, I'm one of them. You know what I mean? A standard of judging oneself, Or how could you decide that somebody is not a woman, Would you say that Joe Biden is a woman? And she might say, well, I'm not a biologist, I couldn't possibly tell you. But if she did venture a guess and suggest that Joe Biden was not a woman, she could be setting herself up for lawsuits, probably, and even calling him by the wrong pronoun. So you see, that's all insanity. It's simply a matter of being rational and being honest. Let's face it. So she was just being evasive. She didn't want to get into it, and I suppose she thought that no matter what I say, somebody's going to object, and that's true, because, like her, liberals and progressives and leftists, they don't believe in what is naturally true. They actually pervert everything. Right? Even the definition of what a woman is, they probably don't even believe there is such a thing as a definition of what a woman is, because being a woman is very fluid, and it depends on how you're identifying at any given moment. That's in their mind, that makes you a woman. Unless she answered like that, then she probably feared that her constituents would turn against her and cancel her. But in any case, Tom, there is a difference between these two things. One might say, well, I'm much more certain that Francis is not a pope than I am that Hillary Clinton is a woman. One could try to argue that point, and I suppose maybe successfully so these days, as far as certitude goes. But it's still a fact that Francis not being the Pope is a matter of a logical process, or a theological process, based upon Catholic tradition, arguing from what the Church has taught us through Catholic tradition, and coming to a conclusion which is one's own conclusion. And if someone disagrees with that person can say, well, you're being illogical or ill-theological. Your reasoning process is wrong. There's something wrong with your facts, or there's something wrong with the principles you're using to judge them. So you're coming to the wrong conclusion because you disagree with me. So because you disagree with my conclusion, I can say, I believe you're wrong. I believe you're being illogical, but I can't say, therefore you're not a Catholic because you don't agree with me. Because you don't have the authority to bind my conscience to agree with your conclusion. I once had a priest who I thought was actually rather intelligent in many ways, still think so, but he told me that John Paul II's non-papacy is a dogmatic fact. And so I knew what a dogmatic fact was, but I wasn't sure that what he thought was a dogmatic fact is what I thought, And so I asked him, well, what do you mean by dogmatic fact? And he simply waved at a shelf of books, and he said, oh, it's over there somewhere. And that was it. Very disappointing. I thought we'd have some kind of, discussion, intelligent discussion, but clearly he wasn't interested in discussing it, and just kind of waving it off. That's often what people do, So they're really not so much interested in the truth. At least they think they have the truth, and what you have to say doesn't count, and they don't want to talk about it with you. But in any case, if the question is simply, is there a difference? Yes, there is a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.